Sup homies, how are we doing? Welcome to the 5th episode of my Back to the Future project. This is turning out to be quite an epic one, make no mistake. We are jumping right in with finishing off Marty McFly's puffer jacket, and I'm keen to get Marty done. As you can imagine, it's been quite a long road so far. So, there's an incredible amount of work gone into it already. And I have spent a couple of hours in between episodes doing some various fixing. This is quite an endurance. In between episodes 3 and 4, I spent a relatively long amount of time with both of the characters' faces, and I wanted to get them absolutely spot on. Marty was relatively easy to sort of fix. It took a little bit of studying, but I got it kind of right in the end. But with Christopher Lloyd's character, Dr. Emmett Brown, he was a lot harder to do. I made a couple of passes on his eyes because that was really the fault of it. I think everything else was heading in the right direction, but it was his eyes, and I did it a few times and it wasn't really working out, so I had to kind of interpret it. And you may find that you will have to do something like this at some point. What I mean by interpreting is that sometimes when you copy things exactly as they are onto the paper, it doesn't translate well. For some reason, it just doesn't work. And if you're at that point where you just want it, you don't want to spend any more time on it, and you want to just move on, and because it's frustrating getting to that point where it's not sort of setting right. So what I ended up doing was sort of fixing his eyes in such that they weren't so wide, because in the original source photo his eyes are very wide open, but it didn't look right. So I settled with how it is now, and I'm happy with it. So yeah, I have spent a long time in between episodes 3 and 4 fixing the faces. You may notice as well that there is a blue tint to their right sides. You see that behind them there's a sort of a blue light. And what ended up happening was that I found an image which looks like exactly the same as this one, but it was, how can I say it? It was sort of, well, the brightness and the saturation and all that, the structure of the actual image itself was different, and there were there was a different kind of color range. Similar, but it was slightly, shifted. So I found that to be a very interesting take for me. I think that helped fix Marty for sure, and it definitely helped with Dr. Emmett Brown's character as well. I think I probably would have remained quite stuck if I hadn't have found that alternative image. It's weird because this must be kind of like a raw, untreated, high-res photo that was taken directly from a negative, whereas the other photo I found must have been a PR image that was treated at some point down the road. But it's additional information, you know what I mean? For me, it's good because I can sort of say, well, it can actually be quite dark there, and or brighter here, and so I've done a lot of things to the faces. As I said, I've added the blue tint to the right. I've used my electric eraser to bring out some of the highlights on the faces as well. So with Marty McFly, you can see just above his eyes there, you've got that yellowy tint. That was done by just going over with an electric eraser. I think I used my eraser pencil as well. So we're cracking on with doing the front side of Marty's puffer jacket here. Nearly towards the end of doing my basic red base sweep here. And I tell you, man, these pencils are just absolutely amazing. If you give it the right amount of time, it's really beneficial, and it gets you the results that you want. The only tricky thing for me I found is that in certain cases there are shades that I can't determine. But the TV that I have is brilliant for resolving this issue, because I think my TV is a certain type of TV. It's LED, but if you sat to the side of it as opposed to straight on, the colour and the tones kind of shift a little bit. Maybe they get a little bit more saturated or darker. So when you're stuck, you can perhaps sort of look at the TV from a different angle, which is what I do, and see if I can find a solution that way. In terms of picking out the right colour, for me, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it's colour blindness or something, where at a certain point where if something is like a real faded pink or blue, I struggle to kind of work out what it actually is. And the camera that I'm using is a brilliant camera, but it's not doing the sketch justice by any means whatsoever. It looks okay on screen, but seeing it in real life is it's like seeing it in high definition. It's fun watching this all sped up though. Just like speed across the page, like pew. I must say as well, my white pen that I have, this like a really fine point white pen, it's been a lifesaver with this project. I might have mentioned it in a previous episode, but I found that if I make a mistake, then if all else fails, then I can use the white pen to go over the mistake and try it again, and it actually works. I can lay over the white pen and then go over it again with pencil, and it works. And I've been using it fairly often with this sketch. You'll see it in certain places if you look hard enough. Okay, so we're done with Marty's puffer jacket. We're going in with the basic shade of his denim top. It's predominantly dark blue. but it does fade to a light beige, but because of the big orange light that's hitting him, it's being tinted to a sort of orange, a light orange. But I will be including all that in. That is the reason why I've faded out my shade right there, you'll see right at the tip. That's because I can mix in some orange later on. I'll be doing it with this side as well. So you can see it all coming together. It's looking rather lush, but slow and steady wins the race here, so just keep plodding on. It's funny, you know, I look back at what I was doing well, as early as 12 months ago, and just working with normal black and white. I never thought I'd be at this point. Jeez. I think I have reached a dream. I've always wanted to be able to sketch in colour like this, and you know, I count it as an achievement for me, to be quite honest. I mean, you know, as I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet, but being able to do something like this and be committed to it, seeing it through to the end and not giving up is a massive step for my personality. I've always, you know, aspired to be that person who achieves something that he's always wanted to achieve, and for me that is doing art to this degree. It's not everyone's cup of tea. I totally get that. You have people that are completely into sports, and you know, it's like, okay. So we're doing the shading now for the collar part of his puffer jacket. I'm double checking with the source photo here of the angles of the ripples, just making sure I'm getting the distance right and the angle right and the shading depth from one side to the other. There's a lot of things to consider when you're doing shading, and if you're new at it, it's always a good idea to do it in stages. So what I'm doing now here, you can see that I'm rounding it off. I'm going round. And then add a bit of variance like that, you see. And then, yeah, just going in and committing to certain folds. But if you think of actual folds itself on cloth or whatever, there's usually, you know, like a, it's like a, you know, it's a bumper, sort of like a ridge, if you like. And if you imagine a light hitting it, it's going to be light and then dark either side, right? But it's varying degrees of that. It's really interesting. I mean, you know, I find it quite interesting anyway. I think I forgot to set the exposure lock on my camera with this session, so I do apologise. So here we go then. This is the pass that brings the whole thing out. The deep shading side, and then after that we will be going over again with highlights. This is really the bit I enjoy the most, though. I mean, you have to sort of obey what's in the source photo, but you can be creative on the way, if that makes any sense. You can sort of vary a little bit, and you don't have to be 100% strict. But the process remains the same, which is you block things out, you get the bulk of it done, as in you imagine it in sort of primitive shape form. There's a block here, there's a shape there, and you get the bulk of it done, and then you can go back through and add some finer detail. That's generally the kind of process that I go for. But with colouring, I find that you have to sort of lay in a base colour, which is a sort of a mid shade, because then you can sort of commit with the blocking and then add in the highlights afterwards. And you have to remember that you must go from light to dark. You can't go from dark to light. In other words, you can't shade black and then get a white pencil, go over the top and expect it to be as vivid. Okay, good, making sure. Alright. So I think at this point I was listening to XFM. Again, I might add, I do love my XFM Ricky Gervais show with Carl Pilkington and Stephen Merchant and stuff. I can't really tell whether it's scripted. It must sort of be controlled to some degree, because Carl is they're playing up on Carl's character for sure, and so they've definitely sort of sat there and planned beforehand. Look, I'm going to offend you, and he's going to offend me back, and blah blah blah. You know what I mean? But it for what it is absolutely fucking hilarious. If you don't mind listening to them, I mean, like the shit that Ricky and Stephen come out with, I don't necessarily agree with all the time, but they are a funny bunch, actually. And surprising that it was done sort of 10-15 years ago or something. Bloody ages ago, man. Okay. So this is turning out, as I said, to be a real epic project, and it's great. It's absolutely great. I'm thoroughly enjoying it, and I'm learning so much as I go, and every time I do a big chunk of work, I look back at my work, and I'm just, I'm so pleased with how it's all going, and I can't thank, the gods enough, really, for me being in this, position and situation where I'm able to do this work for other people and just be totally happy about it. They say that the real happiness is giving and making others happy, and it's a mantra I've lived with my whole life. I've not had the same upbringing as what would be considered normal for the Western world, but I grew up in a religious environment, so I tend to see the world a lot more philosophically than perhaps your average Joe would. And I've had that drummed into me right from, as far back as I can remember, to be honest. I'm taught to respect animals and other people and, be polite no matter what happens. But yeah, as I was saying with XFM, some of the opinions they don't come out with, they come out with are, completely ludicrous as far as I'm concerned. But it is entertaining nonetheless, and yeah. And I'm nearly done with my run of Star Trek The Next Generation. I'm quite gutted, actually. I've gotten to season 7 in like no time, and I don't have any idea how quickly I've managed to be able to do it. It's like I was on season 2 last week, I swear. Anyway, I mean, half of the episodes are shit, but it's like a comfort blanket. And everyone has a TV series, you know what I mean, where they watch if they're ill, Like if I'm ever ill, I'd probably put on Red Dwarf or something to just take myself away from it all. And everyone has a TV show like that, and that's one of them, really. Love it. And they got it just right as well. But some things shouldn't be made into TV shows. Some things don't work as a TV show. And I have to mention Marvel here. Marvel, give it a rest. You conquered the superhero movie market. You don't need to conquer the TV show market as well. Alright, please, the last thing we need is superhero TV shows. I think I might be pissing a lot of people off by saying that. I don't know, I don't care. I just think they tend to work as a movie better. Unless it's sort of like a specific graphic novel that you're adapting. And I think that's a different story. You could do that in parts, but I think for the large parts, superhero movies, work stories work as a movie. But I've got superhero fatigue, mate. I'm sick of superhero movies. I kind of just, I don't want to watch anymore for a while. For a long while. I can't remember the last movie I saw. Hang on. I'm pretty sure it was a disappointment, whatever it was. I think there's a distinct lack of talented script writers, screenplay writers at the moment. That Army of the Dead, that, what's his name now? Zack Snyder. It was awful. It was just awful. Awful. The worst film I've seen in quite a long time. There were plot holes everywhere, and if you had half a brain, you would have spotted 5 within the first half an hour. And I watched it through to the end, but I did so in protest, because it was really just total garbage. I understand that, sometimes I have to suspend my disbelief, but for fuck's sake, man. We just need more competent script writers. And we need to give, the little guy a chance now as well. We're at that point. And cinema tends to do this. It goes round in circles, right? You'll have like a period where people are, relative unknowns are given a chance, and their work proves to be quite profitable and popular. And you have other companies that start copying them. They make money as well, and it becomes a trend. And then it just becomes stagnant and, samey, and everyone is kind of waiting for the company that gives someone another chance, I think, ultimately. And, you have all these talented, established directors that, are good or were good, but have just sort of, lost their talent. That's weird. I think that Ridley Scott's lost some sort of gift. His gift of directing, of making movies. There are others as well. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but at some point, I don't know, maybe it's the vanity or the ego that gets in the way. Maybe it's because they don't have any no men around them. They have all, it's all yes men. And because, they've made successful movies in the past, you've got the studio sort of giving the director a wide berth, letting him do what he wants, but see, that doesn't always work out. It's not easy to find, the right balance between that. I think that was partly why I didn't go into movies in the end, because there's just so many moving parts to it, and it was all sort of very critical. You had to be good or you were out, and there were loads of people fighting for the same spot, and I couldn't be bothered with that hassle of running that race. It just, it would have turned into a marathon, and I wouldn't have had much control, and I would have stopped enjoying it, and that was my biggest sort of, no, really, I don't want to stop enjoying it. So this is why I'm doing it in my own time. Right, anyway, enough bullshit. So getting back to the sketch, we are now just working on the highlights. You can see it's kind of working out quite well, but because there's a big old orange glow coming from the front, we are going to be adapting the highlights from red to an orangey thing. And we're just going to be using our eraser pencil now and just speeding through the bright points, carving them out. It's a funny thing, this pencil. At first it didn't work and I didn't know what was going on. But then I, got a bit more forceful and it started to give. So, I don't know. Obviously it's me. Hates me. So you see what's happening here? It's quality, man. This is the best bit. This is the rewarding bit. You look at it and you're like, yeah, baby, come on. Come on, you're looking gorgeous. You're looking gorgeous. Give me those highlights. I do make a couple more passes at this after the episode's finished, as I recall. And I don't know whether the camera is actually picking it up properly, but there is a very distinct difference now. And it'll be even more so when I've gone over it again with the orange. And we are hurtling swiftly towards the end of this episode. The next episode is going to be slightly shifted in that, because this sketch is taking such a long time, and the way it normally works is that I film for an hour and then I double that speed into half an hour and then have that as an episode. But for the next episode it's going to be 2 hours worth squashed down into half an hour, just because I want to get more done and more through, more sort of done by the end of the next episode, which will be 6. So I'll look forward to seeing you there. Until next time, have a good one, stay safe, and I'll speak to you soon. See you later.